Welcome to Fiction Audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, like and subscribing would be greatly appreciated. If you have any recommendations for novels, comment below.
Please join my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/fictionaudiobook.
Chapter 149, Origin Ninja Storm. Zane, hovering in the air, gazed at the city below him with an unseen expression of worry beneath his ranger helmet. Although the chaos had temporarily subsided, he knew it was just beginning. According to data he had gotten from a quick scan, more invaders were still approaching, with most of them even more ferocious than the former. A new round of battle was about to begin, and it's going to be more terrifying than the last one. It's time to commence with Plan B. Zane's visor gleamed as he looked eastward from his position. Although some of the smaller forces are fighting back, the larger ones are still lurking. I need to force them out. Then his expression turned to that of disdain and mockery. Hey, trying to make me do all the work. It's your planet too, you should also help. Zane's voice was unconcealed to the forces watching. As they heard his words, which echoed like thunder in their ears, the hair on their bodies stood on end. The invisible forces tried to escape, but it was too late, as Zane had already acted. With a wave of his hand, he commanded his mental energy, locking onto them. Get over here. With a low shout and firm pull, several people in cloaks were lifted to the sky, completely rendered helpless by his mental energy. These people floating mid-air numbered thousands. All of them bore similar insignia and were dressed like mages from Kamartaj, masters of mystic arts. Zane had noticed their arrival some minutes back after his arrival from the other invaded places on the planet. Whether they had been waiting for his arrival or the invaders, he didn't know. Their current purpose was none of his business. All he knew was that they had to actively help in preventing this invasion. Even the Avengers had arrived moments ago and immediately helped, assisting the Omni-Force with all they had. So, their hiding as if waiting on something was what Zane couldn't accept. As far as he is concerned, the only ones who had reasons to hide were the villains who are on Earth. They are the ones who can only hide their head, only being able to flay their tails to attack. Forces like Mesogog and other ranger villains fit this category. The junior mages should help with the remaining forces here. The rest of you follow me. Zane gave them no time to react, as he gave instructions. The floating mages from Kamartaj were still dazed, seemingly unable to react for a moment. One moment, they were hiding using a stealth spell, the next moment, they were in the air. Moreover, hearing Zane give them instructions, they felt a surge of anger for the disrespect and prepared to admonish him. Assist him and make sure to listen to all of his orders. A tranquil voice echoed in all their minds before they could reply to Zane. This. Wong, who was currently leading the team of mages, had a confused expression on his face. He couldn't understand the ancient train of thought. She had previously commanded them not to help and watch from behind the scenes, now she was saying the opposite. Several high-ranking mages also faced Wong, waiting for some form of explanation as to why the plans had changed. Many of them, including the junior mages, were even more confused than Wong. Although they were loyal to Kamartaj and the Ancient One, they still had to follow Wong's instructions as he was the commander for this mission. So, whatever he says or instructs them to do, goes. Wong noticed their gazes but had no explanation to offer, as he was also confused. But feeling their burning gazes, he ultimately gritted his teeth and spoke. We listen to the Ancient One. Let's follow this ranger now and help save the world. That's our duty as mages, and we shall follow. By the order of the Ancient One, we shall charge to the front lines. Hearing this, the mages nodded in acceptance and looked very content. They had also been worried about the Ancient One's command of not participating. Many of them had families in both cities, so, just watching their loved ones run for their lives wasn't the best sight. But now that they were being forced by Zane to help, they couldn't be happier. Follow his orders, split into groups of 2. The junior mages assist the team below, and the rest of us will assault the sky. Wong continued ignoring their look of ease. He understood their former worries, but didn't quite care. He also had a family, but Kamartaj comes first. Moreover, with the various spell armaments he had placed on them, their safety was of no issue. He had that much confidence in his spells. He was one of the most high-ranking mages after all. Fwoosh fwoosh fwoosh. Using special mystic arts, the senior mages took to the sky, riding through the air like the wind. Although they weren't as fast as Zane, their flight speed was better than most of the invaders. This was the charm of Kamartaj. Mages might have weaker bodies, but their spell arsenals could definitely make up for it in battle. Zane, watching from afar, nodded while swatting a Chitauri on a hovercraft away. He knew his message had gotten through. His previous words and commands hadn't been directed to the mages of Kamartaj but directly to their leader, the Ancient One. He knew she was always watching, so when he spoke, his perception was on her rather than the mages. Even if the distance between them was quite large, Zane was sure she would get his message and understand his underlying intent. As one of the oldest schemers on Earth, understanding the meaning of his words was quite easy for the Ancient One. Now the only ones remaining are the two Ranger teams. I hope they arrive fast or I'll have to drag them here myself. Zane muttered, then rushed back to the open cut in the sky, quietly waiting for the incoming aliens. The mages also followed behind him, ready for battle. We're going to die. In a dense forest, a young adult with quirky hair and dressed in a fitted martial clothing screamed at the top of his lungs. Behind the quirky male was a Kelzak chasing with murderous intent. Dustin, shut up, X. Behind him rang two annoyed heaving voices, also being chased by two Kelzaks. This running trio was Shane, Tori, and Dustin. A few hours ago, they had been rushing to arrive at ninja training early and even planned to finally turn over a new leaf, taking ninja training seriously. They had even made several emotional speeches to ask for the sensei's forgiveness and promise him they would be hardworking from now on. It was practically a day they had been up all night for. But things didn't go their way, like always. The instant they arrived, the trio didn't see the usual awe-inspiring pagoda or grunts of training. No, all they saw was destruction. A scene most people their age had only witnessed through reports and media due to everyday monster chaos. And to make it worse, these invaders had spotted them the instant they arrived. Instructed by a superior, the trio was immediately besieged by many Kelzaks. But before they left, the trio had witnessed their master, Sensei, battling a man in a hideous mask, and from the exchange, these three knew their master was losing. The trio had naively wanted to help, but Sensei told them to leave and save themselves. Feeling their master's undisguised care and worry for them despite their unseriousness, the trio left with tears in their eyes. But they were still not safe from danger. The moment they left, many of the monsters chased after them. They had only managed to take down two when they were previously besieged, now three remained, continuously hunting them down. Even their ninja powers became ineffective at that moment due to fear. The fear of dying acted like a psychological shadow over them, preventing them from channeling their powers. It was like a blocked pump. Running through the vast expanse of trees, Shane and Tori looked relatively calm on the surface, but Dustin was not. He was screaming for help at every moment. It was both comedic and horrifying to watch. This scene, which should have been both of them mocking Dustin for being a coward, became a thorn. Because each time Dustin screams for help, their hearts tighten, fearing that the enemies from afar would hear it and locate them. Dustin, while gullible, also understood their worries, but what could he do? Rather than dying, he screamed for the smallest glimmer of hope. The trio ran with heavy breaths and soaked dress, for several minutes. Every time they looked back to check if they had lost the Kelzaks, they were horrified to see them chasing unrelentingly and tirelessly. It was as if these monsters had boundless energy. Guys, what should we do? They won't stop chasing. Shane was the first to speak, his calm facade breaking like glass. Tori also breathlessly replied. I don't know. We can't even channel our ninja powers. If this goes on, they'll catch up sooner or later, and when they do, we'll be doomed. Tori's words were like a large hammer smashing at the little hope they held, and the atmosphere around them became more solemn. Even the screaming Dustin stopped, only gritting his teeth and heaving in unwillingness from time to time. Damn it, why is it the moment we want to take ninja training seriously, this happened? Is the world against us? Shane was truly furious, nothing they ever wanted to accomplish worked out for them. Whether it was their personal life or their ninja identity, it all failed. Tori and Dustin stayed silent, still running, but they understood Shane's sentiment. They also felt the world was against them, and at this moment, it was very obvious. Minutes passed by as they continued their escape. The Ninja Academy/realm was a very large expanse, almost the size of 3 countries, and the trio possibly couldn't reach the end, or rather, they hadn't gotten there before. Even moving about to get to far distances required using teleportation scrolls. The trio, although stronger than a normal human due to ninja training, were already extremely exhausted, but the Kelzaks chasing behind were not. If we keep on running like this, we'll be exhausted to death even before the monsters catch up, Tori, with a very pale face, thought to herself as she looked around, trying to find a place of retreat. At that moment. Goo guys, I see something, Dustin exclaimed, pointing west. He looked extremely miserable at the moment as he heaved from time to time with sweat dripping from his forehead. Both Shane and Tori looked west following Dustin's pointed finger. They noticed a metal door beneath a willow tree that seemed to lead somewhere unknown. The trio felt their heart lightened as they saw the place. They had finally found somewhere or something that could lead them out of this vast expanse, even if it might be unknown for the time being. Although they weren't sure if the Kelzaks might follow, it was still a risk worth taking. With a sharp turn, they immediately charged west and bolted towards the willow tree, momentarily confusing the Kelzaks. Their eyes brightened as their lost powers returned. They immediately channeled to increase their speed and rushed towards the underground door. It was truly a situation of seeing hope, seeing life, for them. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. With a burst of colored ninja chi, the trio rushed towards the willow tree, widening the distance between them and the Kelzaks. Their figures were like a gust of wind moving on land. The unresponsive powers within them were fully unlocked during this moment of danger. One ran on air, the other called onto waves nearby to move, and the last figure burrowed into the earth, moving unseen at an extremely fast speed. The mindless Kelzaks didn't understand what was happening, but still chased. The only thing on their mind was their superior's command, which must be followed until death. Suddenly, the running trio simultaneously felt a chill run through their spine. It was a kind of chill that declared unavoidable death. They didn't know where it came from, but knew if they didn't escape as fast as possible, death was the only outcome. Torai looked worriedly at her friends and spoke. Guys, channel all your powers. We have to get out of here fast. The other two nodded, understanding her worries as they had also felt the aura of death. Without hesitation, they called upon the hidden powers within them. Boom. 3 auras surged, blasting away small rocks and trees. The powers erupting from the trio were something completely unfamiliar to them, but they couldn't be bothered to investigate now. All on their mind was getting through the metal door. The Kelzaks, still chasing at their usual pace, were completely left behind. Although the trio could annihilate them now, they didn't have time for that. Swoosh. Clang. The feeling of death got nearer and clearer as the trio arrived beneath the willow. Without wasting time, Shane yanked it open and dived in. Torai and Dustin followed after and shut the metal door with extreme force. Surprisingly enough, the door was rigid and didn't break, instead, it absorbed the force of the pull. Then. Brother, stop. A familiar voice roared, echoing throughout the vast realm. Boom. A dazzling black light appeared at the center of the ninja realm. It was like a pillar of light reaching for the sky. Then it expanded, covering the entire realm, and then. Crackle. Boom. 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 For sounds rang out, the entire realm was cleaved at all sides, exploding at each second with a dazzling light. All things were destroyed. From vegetation to mountain ranges and water bodies, none were spared. Even the remaining Kelzaks lurking around were obliterated to dust. The entire ninja academy was wiped out, with only ash and smoke present in the realm. What do y'all think about this chapter? Please leave reviews and comments. Power stones y'all. Chapter 150, Brutal. Author here, I'm sorry for not updating for so long. I just got my devices fixed and made some changes to the future plot. I hope y'all enjoy this chapter. Root Core. Udana, dressed in her usual white medieval robe, stared intently at the orb displaying several images before her. Behind her were 5 young adults also watching these scenes with solemn expressions. The displayed images in the magic orb were none other than the chaos currently unfolding in the Earth Realm, Midgard, and the Mystic Realm. It's even worse than I expected. Udana frowned, the worry and exhaustion on her face becoming more evident. Nick, with clenched fists and a heart burning with anxiety, spoke. Yes, if it weren't for other ranger teams protecting Earth, it would have long fallen. But the situation of our own realm is getting worse by the minute. Vita nodded, then added. It hasn't been long since the dark forces invaded, but the chaos is spreading faster than the apprentices of the Mystic Force can contain. We have to help them as soon as possible. Vita was also extremely anxious. Seeing the lives of both residents of the Mystic Realm and Earth in danger made her extremely depressed. If not for the fact that she was a ranger, tears would have long streamed down her face. Even if she did cry, the others would understand, as they had never seen such large-scale brutality before. It was really despairing. No, Udana refused. Not now, the forces of darkness are still moving with hidden agendas unknown to even us. If we retaliate blindly, the losses might multiply. Once they stop migrating, that is when we would attack. The team wanted to refute, but seeing Udana's unwavering gaze, they could only shut up and trust her decisions. But to say they weren't unhappy would be a lie. This sense of helplessness and powerlessness was extremely uncomfortable. Udana noticed their hidden emotions and sighed inwardly. I'm sorry, kids. You can only endure for now. The main culprit hasn't even arrived yet. Going now would only mean certain death. Let the other rangers and apprentices handle this for now. Joining later would be no issue. Your importance to the entire universe far surpasses this little chaos. The wind howled, gently caressing Zane's helmet. He had been hovering before the space crack for about a minute, waiting patiently for the incoming invaders. At this moment, there was no fear or anxiety in his heart, instead, his mind was as still as water. After all, he was confident in his strength, and victory in this battle was certain. With the numerous preparations he had made, how could he not win? The only thing that could give him a little trouble was interference from the evil forces on and near Earth. But then again, it wasn't that much of a problem since he had the assistance of his team and other hero forces on Earth, such as the Avengers, Vigilantes, and SPD. I can't wait to see those fools fall into their own schemes. As Zane thought of the villain forces trying to take advantage of the chaos, he couldn't help but smirk. Though the schemes of these forces reached the sky, with Zane's capabilities, uncovering them was as easy as flipping his hands. Now he planned not to stop them directly, but to use their own schemes against them, and make them despair as they fall one by one. One might think it was excessive, but given how evil the plans these individuals made were, it was deserved. Crack. Boom. A thunderous sound broke out in the sky, and the firmament broke once more, snapping Zane out of his thoughts. The cracked space before him spread at an alarming rate. It was so fast the Camartage mages couldn't react for a moment, only Zane was able to. Get ready to fight. Zane's cold voice echoed in all the ears of the mages and heroes below. Wong nodded and immediately commanded the others. Mages, deploy the spells. Fwoosh. 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 The robed figures took action immediately, deploying several arcane spells with expertise. The others assisting the heroes below also deployed spells. Each rune displayed was filled with terrifying destructive powers, capable of sending a small car rolling. Zane nodded internally and then turned his attention back to the widening space crack. The others were tense, waiting anxiously for the invaders, but Zane was different. His posture midair was utterly relaxed as if nothing could shake him in the slightest. Boom. Suddenly, the widening space crack stopped, and a huge head appeared from it. It was the head of a Chitauri behemoth, following that was another head. This head was different from the Chitauris. It was a large alien head with an ugly face, jagged teeth, and eyes as red as the setting sun, which contained ferocity that seemed to devour everything. Following that was another head and another, until there were 8 giant heads. They really came prepared, Zane thought to himself, but wasn't panicked. Instead, he was expectant. He couldn't help but imagine how many points he would gain after destroying monsters of this size and the other smaller ones. Roar. The 9 heads roared simultaneously, shaking the air around them and forcefully pushing their body out of the space crack the next moment. Their entire body came into full view, with one larger than the next. Zane could immediately discern the origin of the monsters, with some being Thanos forces and most from Lothier. Behind these monsters, millions upon millions of Chitauri and Kelzacs poured out, covering the sky and darkening the city below. It was originally a bright afternoon, but now it looked like a moonless midnight. Holy shit, Tony below cursed, utterly terrified by the number of invaders. The same goes for the rest of the Avengers and SPD police. Only the Omni team was calm as they had already expected this. But that didn't mean they weren't also worried. Get ready, guys, and this time, no holding back. We must make these villains know that Earth isn't a planet they can wantonly invade. Connor spoke, his ranger form already in Super Dino mode. So today we must slaughter until they feel despair. These words immediately boosted the team's morale, making them all stand upright and equip their many weapons, ready to strike at Zane's command. The same goes for heroes nearby who heard Connor's speech. They were also motivated. After a few seconds, which felt like forever, Zane finally spoke. Attack. The Omni team, Avengers, SPD police, and Camartage mages all moved the instant Zane's words fell. Then, the chaos began. Boom. Crash. Bang. The Omni team was the first to arrive before the alien forces. They used their new strength to completely overpower their numbers, rendering most invaders unable to respond to the continuous assault. Each of them used their new powers, looking completely different from before. The other hero teams were completely shocked by their display of power. Connor sped through the alien forces with his staff, destroying them at each swing, with speed comparable to that of a newbie speedster. Kira flapped her wings mid-air and fought the airborne forces while clad in the same suit she used against the Sin of Envy. Although not as powerful, it was still enough for her to dominate. Ethan also charged like a bull, with the phantom of a Triceratops appearing behind him as he swept through everything with his horns. Trent, like an artist, swung his saber with speed matching Connor's. His figure blurred in and out of the numerous invaders, not at all fazed by their numbers. Instead, he held a large advantage. Tommy Oliver controlled the gravity around him, rendering the invaders unable to move while also cutting through the numerous aliens. Peter, although normal on the surface, shot out cosmic webs, destroying the invaders with its destructive force. The last team member, Gwen, had a white spider claw phantom on her hands, swiping and tearing these invaders apart. Their battle was nothing short of glorious. It was a testament to their rigorous training and Zane's help. The other hero teams, like the Avengers, also fought valiantly, much like their original versions in the comics and movies Zane had previously watched. As for Zane, he was currently hovering before the 9 Titans. He looked extremely small before them, but still stood with a domineering gait. Finally, a somewhat worthy battle. Zane's Omni-saber appeared in his hand, and he channeled Omni-energy into it. Then, before the giants could react, he moved. Omni-slash. A bright red saber energy spanning kilometers in length burst out from Zane's saber and slashed at the unmoving giants. Boom. The saber energy detonated on their large bodies, sending them tumbling backwards, followed by a howl of pain from each titan. Large patches of wounds appeared on the bodies of these 9 titans, and alien blood dripped, staining the ground below them. Even their regenerative ability struggled to work at this moment. For that simple strike contained the strength of a powerhouse at B-tier strength. For mindless monsters like these, this level of power was enough to render them powerless. Roar. One of the 9 titans howled to the sky, sending signals and calling for help from the forces arriving on Earth through the space crack. These numerous aliens understood its intention and immediately charged at Zane. Zane saw this and just snorted in disdain. Humph. Useless resistance. But surprisingly enough, Zane did not attack personally. Instead, he called upon the totem in his soul. Buzz. The prehistoric totem in his mind shook, and a starlight vortex appeared behind him the next second. It was small at first, but at each passing second it expanded till it rivaled the size of the space crack in the firmament. The heroes fighting below stopped as they saw another portal of the same size as the other appear in the sky. They were startled at first, but as they noticed it was behind Zane, and he might be the culprit, their worries dissipated. They trusted him, or rather, they trusted his strength could take care of any problem that arose, so they'd rather focus on the threat before them. The aliens continued to charge at Zane, utterly fearless, seemingly ignoring the giant vortex behind him. Out, Zane suddenly spoke. Fwoosh fwoosh fwoosh. At his command, massive winged phantoms flew out of the vortex. Their bodies were transparent yet almost solid, but flickered between illusion and reality. These winged phantoms were exactly pterodactyls and other variant species of flying creatures that existed in the prehistoric era of this planet. Not only that, but phantoms of land and aquatic dinosaurs appeared afterwards, varying from tyrannosaurs to megalodons. Their numbers were so overwhelming that they matched the Chitauri and Kelzak forces in number and surpassed them in strength. Some were small while others were extremely large, with each of them radiating boundless aura and ferocity. Their energy level matched a powerhouse at C tier. Although not too powerful at the scale of this battle, their numbers were enough to make anyone at the same level of strength despair. The abrupt change in development stunned the approaching aliens, forcing most to halt. Only the mindless ones still charged forward relentlessly. But Zane was not done yet. With one final push, a large head matching the Titan appeared from the starlight vortex. This phantom was different from the previous ones, as it looked extremely solid and appeared to possess a complete physical body. Just like a flesh and blood entity. The entire head was light green, with numerous white crystal scales embedded on the sides of its face. Its huge nostrils emitted smoke with each breath, unintentionally burning some surrounding aliens. The most noticeable features on the head were its crystalline horns and slit, yet beautiful green eyes, shining brightly like rubies. Then, with a little force from it, the entire body finally appeared. It had wings similar to the winged dinosaurs, but they were larger and thicker. The entire body looked serpentine but also possessed 4 clawed legs. By Odin's beard, it's a dragon. Thor, familiar with creatures like this, exclaimed. The other members of the Avengers and SPD were also shocked by the scene. Although most of them had never seen dragons, they could imagine what it would look like from numerous TV shows they had watched, but seeing one appear before them shattered their worldview. Even the Omni-rangers were speechless. But they later calmed down and smiled, thinking to themselves that their leader never ceased to amaze them. What would he bring out? An elf. Roar. The majestic green dragon roared to the sky, announcing its arrival. With a single flap of its massive wings, it arrived beside Zane in a flash, looking at him with a fawning expression. Zane's eyes flickered with surprise as he subconsciously patted the dragon's head, making it squirm in satisfaction. Although he knew dragons existed in ancient Earth, he never knew he could summon one. The prehistoric totem is even more mysterious than I thought. A pity I can only use 1% of its power with my current strength. Although disappointed by his inability to use it fully, he was still satisfied he could summon a dragon with strength at the B middle tier. He turned to look at the approaching mindless Chitauri soldiers and spoke. Now, we're finally even. Kill. His voice resonated coldly amongst the prehistoric phantoms and dragons, making each one's expression turn ferocious. Rumble. The land, aquatic, and aerial dinosaurs present charged into action, slaughtering both the Chitauri and Kelzaks. Alien blood flowed, staining the land and actually forming a small ocean. If not for Zane's innocence field, the people below would have drowned in it. The dinosaurs' fighting style was totally different from that of humans. They tore flesh, swallowed whole and split organs, which made the scene extremely brutal. The citizens below couldn't help but close their eyes and shiver in fear. If they hadn't known the situation of the battle from the beginning, most would have thought Zane was the villain here. Even the heroes below shivered at the sight before them. Most of them had never seen such a scene before. Only Thor frowned slightly, but wasn't as uncomfortable as the rest. Even Zane's team felt stifled by the apocalyptic scene. But they were happy it wasn't them being butchered this way, but the opposite. Roar. The green dragon stayed behind to assist Zane in battling the 9 titans. Zane stood calmly on its head with its hands behind it. There were no weapons in his hand, only his clenched fist ready to strike. The cape of his Phase 1 Omni suit flapped along with the huge dragon's wing. One could say Zane currently possessed an invincible posture. Attack. Zane sent a mental command as he ordered the green dragon. Rar. Whoosh. It responded immediately and spewed out green flames from its mouth directly at the sky, shrouding the titans. Boom. This time, they felt even more pain and simultaneously howled to the sky. The Chichuari behemoth amongst them burnt to ash, unable to resist the flames, leaving only 8 remaining injured titans. A sharp glint flashed through Zane's visor as he called upon his Morpher the next moment. I can't use Zords yet. I have to lure the other forces here first and take them down in one fell swoop. Zane thought to himself, then added. But first, let's destroy these mindless beasts. Jungle Beast. His Morpher blazed, and time stopped for a moment. His entire figure appeared in a forest domain, and a tiger phantom burst out from his Morpher. Then. Spirit unleashed. Afterwards, he made several fighting stances, his body blurring here and appearing there. The tiger phantom roared and merged with his body, covering him in a latex-striped armor. Finally, the tiger phantom converged on his head, forming a tiger helmet and visor. Time resumed, and the light faded, revealing Zane in his new ranger form. The Jungle Fury form. This is the first time I went pure jungle form. Zane clenched his fist, feeling the feral power contained within him. My strength is the same, but new moves appeared in my mind with this form. Strange, this didn't happen when I used my shark spirit to transform then. Various conjectures flashed through his mind, but he later shook them off. No need to worry about that for now. I'll figure it out later. Zane murmured, then refocused his gaze on the titans. Before fighting, Zane scanned his internal situation. He seemed to feel an instinct for battle brewing within him, threatening to burst out with unparalleled power. Zane knew this was the source of the Jungle Fury Ranger powers and the reason they were the most skilled at hand-to-hand martial arts amongst the legacy of Power Rangers. They hardly relied on weapons, instead, they used fists and flesh to battle evil and won most of the time. They were the most suited for Zane, as he also had a similar fighting style. Whoosh. Boom. Zane intended to hold back nothing and completely release this beastly instinct within him. A red tiger phantom formed behind him, roaring to the sky as he went into a battle stance and spoke. With the strength of a tiger, Jungle Fury, Red Ranger. Chapter 151, Final. Another chapter done. Enjoy, guys, and please spend your power stones. It motivates me to write more. In a dark laboratory, many test tubes filled with unknown fluorescent chemicals glistened, dimly illuminating Mesogog, who stood at the center as still as a statue. His eyes were firmly shut, and the only thing illuminating his prehistoric face was the floating tesseract before him. After almost 30 minutes of standing, his reptilian eyes finally snapped open. His head bobbed backwards a little as he exhaled a breath of turbid air. Then, with a fanatic gaze, he stared at the tesseract and spoke hoarsely. Success. I can't believe it worked. Although I don't fully understand what happened earlier, the process still profited me in the end. He clenched his fists, feeling the mysterious powers coursing through his veins, and couldn't help but moan in pleasure. Not quite long ago, due to external interference, the tesseract had moved by itself, rushing towards the sky of his lair, which startled him immensely. Accompanying that movement was a burst of energy released from the tesseract. One he had never seen it display before. But it didn't take long for it to settle back down. Out of curiosity, he tried to store and manipulate that energy, and fortunately for him, it worked. After the first success, he became bold and attempted to absorb this mass of energy. And behold, fortune favors the bold, or rather, in Mesogog's case, the mad. He actually succeeded and underwent another transformation, increasing his intelligence, strength, and mental energy by an astonishing degree. As Mesogog continued to examine himself, he suddenly thought of the cause of this transformation, and an evil smirk couldn't help but form on his face. He then turned to look at the large tube hovering within the room, and his smile became even more pronounced, making him uglier than he already was. I still have to thank you for your contribution. If it weren't for your kindness and selflessness, I might have never known the Tesseract possessed such means. The recipient of his words didn't reply. In fact, it was suspended in a large amount of mutagen within the tube. The body of this entity surprisingly brimmed with life, richer than an ordinary human. Mesogog moved closer to it and continued. Don't worry, I'll make sure to treat your body well. After all, you are a supreme specimen. A specimen I would put to good use. Ha 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 he 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 he. A chilling laughter rang out from Mesogog, shaking the tubes within his lab. And the one suspended within the hovering tube of mutagen was none other than Loki, the god of deception and lies. Boom. A figure shuttled through the air, moving at a speed faster than anyone can track. His body radiated boundless might and a mix of ferocity. This aura caused the atmosphere to darken around him. Bang. Boom. With a single swing of his right hand, he punched one of the titans on its head, shattering half of its jaw and leaving it in immense pain. Rawr. It couldn't even make a normal sound as its windpipe had been utterly crushed. All that echoed was a gibberish sound of pain as its alien blood and organs drooped down from its neck. It was an utterly horrifying scene. The other titans couldn't even react to the attack. They were too slow and stupid, possessing only strength and size. This became a massive advantage for Zane, as it made it easy to crush them quickly. Zane did not give the titan a chance to stabilize itself, he immediately rushed forward and kicked at its head. Bang. Splurt. Boom. The giant head burst open like a melon, turning into a mist of blood that rained down but failed to stain the city. After finishing off another one, Zane did not slow down his pace at all. He instead increased his speed and rushed towards the remaining 7, with his hands shaped like a tiger's claws charging forward. A tiger phantom appeared behind him again, merging with his claw-shaped hand, and filled it with immense power. Slash. Swipe. Zane converged the immense powers on his 2 claws and aggressively pounced at the 7 at the same time, leaving phantom images behind as he maneuvered around them. But this time, the titans retaliated, some punched, while others shot out beams from their mouths. Their mindless eyes became even more filled with madness. Although they weren't particularly intelligent, they still recognized a threat. And the one before them could threaten their lives. So how could they not defend against him? Swoosh. Boom. Flurries of dazzling attacks rang out in the sky, with each canceling out the other. Whether it was Zane's attacks or the Titans, each one possessed the power to destroy a large town in a single strike. Especially Zane's, filled with might so powerful that it could alter a part of the city's weather. Tiger Claw. Zane's body spun, and his right hand shot forward, aiming straight at the head of one of the Titans. Boom. Splurt. Another one down, Zane murmured as another bloody mist rained down on the city. His display of strength and ferocity finally gave the remaining Titans a scare. They became so frightened that they started to flee. Zane saw this scene, and his expression turned comical. Am I that scary? He couldn't help but ask himself. But as he thought of the previous scene, he finally understood why they were so scared of him. Oh well, I better end this His thoughts stalled for a moment as he noticed a familiar yet different rune appear at the center of the city. So, they also intend to participate in the chaos. Good, saves me the trouble of luring them out. Zane ignored the rune for a moment and turned back to the fleeing Titans. Without delay, he channeled the animal spirit within him, drawing out its power to the maximum. Call to the beast inside. Each word was like thunder, shaking the sky and earth. Free the tiger. Boom. The surroundings immediately changed before the eyes of the Titans, as they stretched and widened to infinity. They wanted to move but found out it was impossible. These low-intelligence beings could only wail and wait for death. Suddenly, a tiger's phantom in Zord form burst out from Zane's body and rushed towards them, enveloping their entire perception. The tiger was impossibly huge as its gaping maw widened and swallowed the 6 remaining Titans in a big gulp, pulverizing them within its body. Roar. After destroying the Titans, it roared, inadvertently clearing the darkened sky. As its mission was complete, it dissipated the next second. This series of actions seemed slow, but actually happened in a flash. Really fast, the people below and the arriving forces on the battlefield didn't notice anything till after. Zane hovered in the sky for a moment, then flashed away in the next, appearing near the newly manifested magic rune. It was several meters wide, easily covering a football field. The lines around it were archaic and eerie, forcing one to look away rather than directly. With Zane's powerful perception, he instantly sensed the staggering amount of dark magic contained within each line of the rune. I fear half the forces at the first chamber of the pit are going to arrive through this teleportation rune. Zane thought to himself, then added. I might as well stay here for a moment and destroy them the moment they arrive. That way, the heroes won't be overpowered when I fight another battle later. Buzz swoosh. Before acting, he switched his ranger form back to phase 1 to preserve energy. Though he had a large amount of Omni-energy, he'd rather save it for more powerful enemies later than for the arriving small fries. A full minute passed, the heroes were still battling on the other side, while Zane floated above the rune silently. Though, surprisingly, no Chitauri or Kelzax attacked him. It was almost as if Zane was invisible. This was not the lack of perception from the invaders, but Zane doing so as his aura was currently at the lowest, making it impossible for most people to spot him, not to mention mindless creatures. Buzz. After what seemed like a long time, the magic rune finally had a reaction, causing Zane's to gleam beneath his visor. The dark magic within the runes fully erupted at this moment, covering the entire battlefield, making both heroes and invaders freeze for a moment under the vast pressure. It didn't stop there but continued like a chain reaction, activating several other smaller runes around the city, which then formed a giant interconnected runic formation. These runes blazed with an eerie light as they covered the entire city in a mighty barrier. Zane saw all of this but did not act to stop it. He even encouraged them in his heart. This series of actions was perfect for him, as it aligned with his goals for this mission. Casting a barrier of limited range yet encompassing both heroes and invaders, who wouldn't be happy about it? This made his job very easy. This cage had made it simpler for him to destroy every enemy at once, with little to no chance of escape later on. The most fascinating thing about this barrier was that although its width was limited, covering only New York City, the height was more exaggerated, spanning several kilometers upward as it covered a part of the Earth's pole. This, in turn, made it impossible for any invader from space to escape through the space crack. Instead, they were even trapped here. The core rune before Zane buzzed once more, but this time, it burst with a more intense dark energy. The eerie energy was so vast that it condensed into smoke, which modified the environment within the barrier to sustain the incoming force of dark magic. Dark magic. How did it appear in Midgard? Thor, being a prince of Asgard, was the first amongst the many heroes to notice the sudden change in the atmosphere. Asgard had always been against anything that could break the balance of the 9 realms. Especially Odin and several other god kings who made ancient oaths to protect the stability of the realms, and dark magic was the opposite of this. This force has been around for eons, longer than many ancient powers. Its birth since the dawn of the universe. And according to what Odin had told Thor, the dark magic forces were the evilest entity in the 9 realms and must be annihilated at all costs if spotted. Apart from those commands, he said nothing more. That was also one of the rare moments Thor had seen his father apprehensive about anyone or anything. That day truly opened his eyes about the vast 9 realms and how dangerous it was. Even though he was proud, Thor was still scared of these secret yet powerful forces. It was like a bedtime horror story to him and most of the royalty in Asgard. Crack. Bomb. Thor swung his Mjolnir, propelling himself to the sky, and shattered a large Chitauri behemoth as he flew. His body crackled with lightning as he moved towards the source of dark magic with a grim expression. Oh, he's coming over here. Zane noticed Thor's incoming presence, but did not turn back to look. He couldn't be bothered to look as he was comprehending the mechanics of the rune. Zane was naturally gifted with knowledge, so things like this sparked his interest the most. And in the few seconds he had watched the operations of the rune, Zane had comprehended more than half of the secrets within it. Both the mechanics and channel of magic had become clear to him. This showed how high his comprehension was. His intelligence was never this good. It was only after his previous evolution and several other power-ups that his intelligence grew to such an extent, making him an extremely rare genius. The amount of time Zane took for this was only a few seconds, and he had already cast away his gaze the next moment. Several beings finally appeared in the core ruin, with more also coming out of the other secondary runes. These newly arrived forces were extremely ugly, possessing no eyes or nose, just razor-sharp canines that filled their mouth. On their faceless head were several holes that reeked of decay and dark energy. Their bodies were practically brown and white rusted armor with no signs of flesh. The armor seemed to peel off every moment, staining the ground beneath them. These strange entities were naturally the forces of darkness, and these soldiers/minions were commonly known as Hidiacs. Leading them was none other than the Dark Knight himself, Korag. This time, he possessed an even more powerful aura. Omni-beam. Before the dark forces could figure out what was going on, a large red beam of omni-energy appeared before them. Boom. The energy beam pulverized all the Hidiacs on the core rune, leaving only Korag, who was surprisingly uninjured. Who? After the dust settled, Korag roared to the sky in anger, his eyes darting to and fro as he searched for the culprit. A few moments later, he finally spotted a figure in the sky. Korag's eyes narrowed, and the dark magic immediately erupted from his body at maximum. It's you. Seeing the cause of his disgrace and defeat hovering above him, Korag, who was known for his calmness in most situations, couldn't help but explode in rage. The sudden outburst of anger made Zane raise an eyebrow. They weren't enemies in past lives, right? Why so much anger? Today I shall slay you and regain my honor. Korag drew his blade and steadied his wolf shield. He pointed the blade at the awe-inspiring red figure in the sky, ready to fight to the death. Then I shall see how you intend to slay me, O defeated one. Zane's words were slightly mocking, but Korag didn't think much of it. To him, Zane had every right to taunt him. He, after all, was the loser of their last battle. Take my blade. Korag also flew to the sky, charging at Zane with extreme speed. With pleasure, Zane replied and also punched forward. Boom. Blade and fist met, shattering the air around them. Chapter 152, Final. Clang. Boom. The impact of their attack distorted the void around them, producing sharp whistles and numerous explosions. Korag was knocked back several meters by the force, while Zane only took a step back. He's gotten stronger. Korag asked himself. Or was our last battle not the full display of his true strength? After a moment of worry, he shook off the thoughts and said to himself. Whether he's strong or not doesn't matter, with the Master's blessing, victory is certain. Oi, I didn't knock your brains out, right? Zane teased from afar after noticing Korag's prolonged silence. Korag ignored his taunt, rising even higher in the air, and charged for an attack the next moment. Dark Magic Strike. He unsheathed his night saber and slashed out with incredible momentum. Slash. Clang. A dark purple saber arc that seemed to swallow the very light around it whistled through the air as it collided with Zane in a heartbeat, forcing him to focus on the approaching attack. Quite strong, Zane responded with a blade strike of his own. But not enough. His strike cancelled Korag's with ease, rendering the attack ineffective. How is this possible? Korag's was extremely shocked. I don't believe it. Not accepting the failure, Korag used another skill in his vast magic inventory. Wolf Attack. The concealed center of his shield burst open, the eye within completely exposed. This eye, which had just appeared, seemed to be the root of all evil and looked extremely sinister, giving one the feeling of gazing into an abyss. It was the Eye of the Master. The amount of dark magic contained within Korag's seemingly normal shield increased at a horrifying rate. Following its exposure, phantoms of dark wolves gushed out from within, assaulting Zane at every angle, with an even more terrifying force, one almost 10 times the previous attack. This attack finally made Zane serious, as the energy and destructive level approached B, middle, tier. A tier higher than Zane's normal strength. With a thought, another weapon appeared in his hands, alongside the Omni-saber. It was the V-blade. This weapon, at B tier in quality, which Zane could only use partially before due to lower strength, unleashed its full potential at the moment. His body bent slightly as he positioned himself for a dash in the air. A powerful force erupted from him, as his strength was fully unleashed. Zane held nothing back this time. He couldn't. Korag's current attack was extremely strong. If it weren't for his innocent skill, buildings would have shattered at its mere pressure. Boom. 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 Zane moved, his figure blurring, leaving only flickering phantoms behind him. He skillfully twirled the two weapons in his hands, deflecting the wolf phantoms at each turn. His figure moved like a skillful artist, appearing here and disappearing there. Each counter was precise, so precise that one would think Zane had predicted it. Even some blade masters and geniuses would be shocked at this scene. This is the first time I've gone all out while using weapons. Zane thought to himself as he maneuvered around the numerous wolf phantoms. This is also the perfect chance to test my strength without my ranger skills and power-ups. He can even counter an attack this strong. Just who the hell is he? Korag thought as he watched the absurd scene. He wouldn't be the descendant of an old god, right? He couldn't help but speculate about various reasons in his mind. One more absurd than the other. Even with his vision, age, and vast knowledge, Korag couldn't understand why Zane was so strong at such a young age. Before their battle, he had secretly used a minor spell to check Zane's age. When he found out that Zane was only 18, Korag was extremely shocked. Although at his peak, he was countless times stronger than the current Zane, the age difference between them was still very vast. Before he was sealed, his strength was enough to conquer vast realms. One move of his could shatter a small star. But to attain this strength, he was infused with dark magic for thousands of years. Not just that, he had fought and bled in countless wars to get that strong. And that time, at his age, getting to that level of strength at only a few thousand years of age was extremely rare. Only a set of special individuals in the universe could accomplish it. So, finding out Zane was only an 18-year-old ranger with such a high level of strength truly shocked him. One must know that in their last battle, they both had been at each other's necks the moment they met. So Korag had no time to investigate his age, as he was fighting for his life. He had previously assumed Zane was also a sealed strongman from many years ago, but now he realized his previous assumptions had been extremely wrong. He must have been training for a long time. At least from a very young age. That was the only reasonable explanation Korag could come up with. Then again, his potential is extremely high. One never seen before. If Korag knew Zane had only gotten to this level of power after just a few months of training, he would be horrified. Boom. An explosion rang out in the air, pulling Korag out of his thoughts. As he looked at the source, he found out Zane had already destroyed all the wolf phantoms. Although it looked slow, the attack, counter, and even Korag's thoughts only took a few seconds. Zane, decisive as ever, instantly appeared, shrouding Korag's vision, and brought down his Omni-saber in a massive overhead arc clang. Korag, unflustered by the abrupt attack, raised his shield in time, blocking the massive impact. As a knight who valued honor and was also prideful, Korag's figure was unshaken by the attack. Although the force transmitted was strong, it did not make him kneel or fall to the ground. Instead, he skillfully guided that force outward, using it to propel himself away from Zane, creating a reasonable distance between them. Then came the battle of skills. Zane and Korag went blow for blow. Zane moved beautifully, his attack sometimes soft and sometimes hard. Korag, also an experienced knight who had weathered countless battles, countered each attack and retaliated at each given chance. The force and shockwave of their attack unintentionally destroyed some Hidiaks, Kelzaks, and Chitauri lingering around. Even Thor, who had previously wanted to assist Zane, was forced to halt and focus on other dark generals from the dark magic forces. He had no choice, the battle between Zane and Korag exceeded his current capabilities. Boom. 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 The battle reached its critical point, and at this point, Korag was already overwhelmed by Zane. His former composure broke as he weaved through the air, trying his best to evade Zane's ferocious attacks. This kid doesn't fight with honor at all. Almost all his moves are filled with murderous intent. Korag was inwardly panicking. How is he so vicious? Isn't he just 18? He, the Night Wolf, was actually fleeing for his life because of an 18-year-old kid. If his former rivals knew, they would mock him non-stop. But who could blame him? Zane wasn't someone who played around with his enemies when fighting. No, the moment he moves, it's guaranteed that a life is reaped. His viciousness had been displayed to the Asgardian brothers. Thor had also been utterly helpless against his ferocity, for he felt like he was battling a killing machine. That was why he called him a demon in red. And looking at Korag's current state, the title was well-deserved. Shirring. A cold gleam flashed through Korag's knight helmet, making him involuntarily lean to the side, dodging an attack by a hair's breadth. Stop moving around for a moment, a cool voice echoed behind him. Let's talk. Like hell I would, Korag swore for the first time in many years, as he felt death loom over him. Do I really have to use that now? I'm so unwilling. Korag's was now torn between two decisions. 1. Die by Zane's hand and have the master reform his body, but that would be losing his and his master's honor, which had previously occurred in their last battle. So, he was very reluctant to lose again. Second was to use the master's magic to boost his strength and finish Zane off, but that also had complications. It was supposed to be used to collect life force from the humans and corrode this realm with dark magic for future invasions, not to fight against a single ranger. Although some rangers were said to be ruthless, I had never experienced it before. But now it seems the rumors were true, some rangers are just demons in a hero's clothing. Korag thought grimly as he was once again knocked away by Zane, almost losing his flight balance. Zane had been silent throughout the entire battle. His mind was only focused on Korag, anticipating his moves from time to time. As someone who had watched these individuals from a god perspective, he knew Korag still had more skills in his arsenal, extremely powerful ones at that. So, he dared not be careless and fought at full strength, aiming to decapacitate him as soon as possible. But it hadn't been easy. Korag was an extremely talented and skilled knight and possessed more experience than Zane. He always had a way to counter him. Although Zane could have ended the battle a long time ago, he was still waiting for the last chess piece to arrive. Whoosh! Zane suddenly halted his attacks and looked deeply at Korag. That unseen gaze made the courageous Night Wolf grip his night saber more tightly. His terrifying intuition, forged through thousands of years, made him sense something was about to go wrong. Then, he heard a faint voice. Initiate Phase 2. I'm done playing tag with you. Boom. Before he knew it, the figure in red transformed to blue and had already arrived before him with a folded fist of fury. Fast. Too fast. That was Korag's thought before he was knocked down, and this time he fell. The Night Wolf fell on his back. Bang. The force of the impact failed to dent the ground but completely cracked his precious night saber. Korag only grunted in pain. Although this might seem like an underreaction, people who had faced Korag's unyielding will knew he rarely gave an expression during battle. This was the first since his revival. Zane's figure flickered once more, appearing before the fallen Night Wolf with another knuckle. Bang. 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 His blows were continuous, sending Korag's figure sliding across the tiled road of New York, as if sweeping it with his body. It was an utterly tragic and humiliating scene to watch. Even the heroes and villains had to stop fighting to watch the battle. The visual impact of the battle was too shocking. This, how dare he? Rage burned in Korag's dark heart as he was continuously battered. From birth to this day, he had never suffered such severe humiliation as this. to be beaten to such a state was not acceptable for him, the Night Wolf. It was not his way, Korag. He would never accept this. Eye of the Master. He roared as the eerie eye of his shield opened once more. This sudden change made Zane's pupils contract as he flickered away the next moment. The second he dodged, a terrifying shockwave of dark magic erupted from that area, rushing towards the escaping Zane at a speed unseen. Boom. Zane was swept away by the attack, tumbling backward like a broken kite, before steadying himself a few meters away. He's finally gotten serious. Before he could continue, a tearing sound echoed throughout the battlefield. Zane and Korag both looked up, discovering that a blue portal had appeared in the sky. Behind it was a shattered screen film, which was the barrier Korag had set up before arriving. And not just anyone could break in, so Korag was a little surprised, but Zane wasn't. Whoosh! A moment later, a gaunt figure appeared in front of the portal. In his right hand lay a glimmering blue cube radiating a vast amount of cosmic energy. He's finally here, Zane thought to himself. Mesogog. Korag's thought also stalled for a second, not because of Mesogog, but because of the cube in his hands. Is that what I think it is? Korag, usually calm, became anxious. How did it appear here? On this small planet. As a conqueror of realms from many thousands of years ago, Korag naturally knew about the Infinity Stones. It was one of the powers the Master, his master, had coveted but couldn't get his hands on. According to his master, if he could obtain even only one, being on par with other high-ranking dimensional gods would be a breeze. Now seeing one appear before him, Korag was extremely shocked. The master, who had also been watching the battle, naturally sensed it from his pit and immediately sent a message to Korag. Get that stone for me now. If you succeed, I shall unseal more of your power at any cost. The voice spoke in an unfamiliar language that seemed to stem from the very depths of madness. Ordinary people would not be able to understand and might even get lost in the sound alone, but someone like Korag, who is blessed by the abyss and his master, understood them perfectly. Therefore, for now, his anger towards Zane had to be put aside. He then cast his gaze upon the newly arrived Mesogog with faint greed and murderous intent. Zane noticed the shift in the atmosphere and instantly understood what was about to happen. Exactly what I wanted. Zane thought to himself. Mesogog noticed Korag's undisguised gaze of greed. His lips curled up in an ugly smile as he looked at the cube in his hands and spoke. Oh, you want this? He stretched the tesseract in a teasing manner, intending to enrage the knight below him. Korag ignored him for a moment and looked at Zane. We'll settle our grudges later, and I shall reclaim my honor. These words were filled with suppressed anger, which Zane heard but didn't take seriously. He already knew Korag's mission had been changed midway and concluded it was the master who intervened. Even if they continued, he was still guaranteed to win, no matter what Korag pulls out later. After all, he had simulated this battle countless times. Now that the new target was Mesogog, or rather the tesseract in his hands, the plans had changed, but not by much. Everything was still within his expectations. And regarding the tesseract, Zane also had plans for it, so he would make sure none of them leave with it today. Korag's attention was already back on Mesogog. Both Cyborg and Knight stared at one another with an ill gaze. Shirring. The night blade was drawn again as it gleamed under the sun, ready to reap souls. Korag's figure blurred, moving at extreme speed and arriving before Mesogog with a blade pierce. Mesogog dared not relax and prepared to unleash a mental attack. Die. They both screamed as they charged at one another. Suddenly. Bang. You haven't forgotten I was here, right? Zane somehow had mysteriously appeared between them, blocking both incoming attacks with his palms. Boom. An even more terrifying aura burst out from him at the moment, and a chaotic domain stretched forth, covering the entire city. The domain seemed to have a suppressive force on all his enemies, villains, as it reduced their power by 40%. Such a large decrease was terrifying. This powerful domain was one of Zane's A-tier skills, the Grid Sovereign Manifestation. Zane, clad in his Phase 2 suit, hovered slightly above the two, his visor gleaming coldly under the midday sun. Now that you are all here. It's time to end this. Another chapter down. Only at most 2 chapters remaining for the first arc, then the second arc would begin. I'm planning to make it more interesting than this, since this one was a little chaotic. As a new author, I consider improving my writing skills very important. So updates might be slower. I hope y'all understand. Thanks for the love. Please donate Power Stones. Chapter 153, Final. The entire battlefield was silent for a moment. All humans, aliens, dark monsters, and invaders looked up to the shining light in the sky. Most of them had witnessed the battle from the beginning to where it is now. To call it a complete one-sided beating would be an understatement. The newly appeared ranger, whom most of them had only seen on TV, was so powerful that, no matter how numerous the evildoers, he still prevailed. And it was not with difficulty but with extreme ease. During the initial invasion, most humans and alien inhabitants of Earth were horror-struck. Although monsters attacked every month, it was never at this scale, and there were almost no casualties. Though buildings were always destroyed, they had since adapted to situations like that, as it was more frequent than their monthly bills. Therefore, this invasion was like a world-ending crisis to all the species on Earth. Now, seeing a beacon of hope upholding justice and protecting Earth with other heroes made them feel fortunate. Even some who had issues with vigilantes and superheroes let go of their hate at this moment. Even the notorious news reporter J. Jonah Jameson, commonly known as JJJ by the people of New York City, had his eyes redden at this moment. Just for today, I won't make any harsh reports on the superheroes, JJJ murmured silently, but his shrewdness could not be concealed. Well, except Spider-Man. He added after. In the sky, where the battle was unfolding, Zane still stood between the two villains. His posture was utterly relaxed, showing he wasn't worried about the possibility of being attacked by both. Even if they did, he had numerous ways to deal with them. It's you again. The former slyness Mesogog had was now replaced with a solemn gaze. Why do you always interfere with my plan, Ranger? Not just you, but those little dinos running around the city. Why do you reject evolution? Why do you not seek ultimate ascension? Why do you detest power? The last question came out louder than intended. Zane became puzzled the instant those words fell into his ears. Are you shitting me right now? I am a ranger who upholds justice and punishes evil. You're obviously with evil intentions. Why won't I stop you? Moreover, your so-called ascension plan requires the extinction of all life on Earth. Who in their minds won't stop you at all costs? Unless that person was a psychotic villain like you, would they support your ascension plan? These thoughts flashed through his mind, but Zane kept his mouth shut and just stared deeply at Mesogog. Ah, yeah, I forgot villains like you enjoy monologues a lot, and I do not have that time. Zane's posture became even more relaxed, his arms crossed midair, completely ignoring the burning gaze from behind him. These words immediately deflated Mesogog's expectation. He had thought bringing this new ranger to his side would be easy. He even used a little bit of his mental energy to influence his words, but it failed. It was as if it met an immovable object when he sent it out. Fine, since you refuse to evolve, I shall destroy you and the inhabitants you fought so valiantly to protect. That I promise. Mesogog spoke these murderous words with eloquence, his arms were stretched wide as if embracing the entire world. Korag, who was hovering on the other side near Zane, had been completely silent since their conversation began. Although he looked calm, his mind was currently like stormy weather. Such powerful mental energy. Even in the universe, this amount without training is very rare. He's simply the best candidate to learn dark magic. Korag thought deeply, then continued. Should I inform the master? As this thought sprouted, he instantly shook it off. No. Not now. I must complete the immediate mission first. After I get the stone, informing the master about it should be next. But first. Korag stared deeply at Zane. I have to get through him. Korag was ready to use stronger spells. Since other spells were completely ineffective, he would have to compromise and use forbidden ones. Even if it cost him some of his power, he still had to do it. That was the only way out he could think of at the moment. To stop Zane from interfering with his mission, he had to give it his all. Zane, at this moment, was getting ready to end it all. He took one look at Mesogog, then the next at Korag. I think it's about time we end this. Since you rudely visited Earth, a punishment is deserved. Zane spoke slowly. And that punishment shall be death. Boom. Without waiting for their response, Zane exploded forward, striking at Mesogog, the nearest to him. His figure was like an elusive ghost, leaving only flickering images behind him. With fists coated in destructive omni-energy, Zane punched outward with his right hand, arcing through the air, and aimed at Mesogog's head. Bang. Boom. Zane's speed and decisiveness stunned Mesogog, leaving him almost unable to react. If it weren't for the tesseract in his hands, blocking that punch would have been nearly impossible. Oh no. How is he so fast? This was not in the recorded data. A chill ran down Mesogog's spine as the folded fist outside the tesseract barrier seemed to enlarge in his vision. Although he had been somewhat wary of Zane before, that was because he had recorded all his capabilities and knew how to counter them. Or so he had thought. The strength and ferocity displayed by that single punch exceeded all known data records in his lab. Zane's eyebrow arched in surprise. Tisk, worthy of being a mad scientist. He even figured out how to manipulate the tesseract's energy. Then, before Mesogog could react, Zane had already switched stance, bringing down his legs in an overhead arc. I'll just add more power. With brimming omni-energy coating his two legs, Zane pushed forward, colliding with the barrier formed by the Tesseract in full force. Boom. Crack. Shatter. The barrier couldn't hold on and cracked the moment Zane's legs landed, then seconds later, it shattered like brittle glass. Because of the overwhelming force radiated by that kick, the Tesseract was knocked out of Mesogog's hand. No. Mesogog howled in both fear and anger. I'll kill you. He stared at Zane for only a second before chasing after the falling Tesseract. But how could Zane give him that chance? Oh no, you don't. Zane's figure blurred, breaking the sound barrier with a boom. His figure zipped past Mesogog, leaving him unable to react. In a matter of seconds, he had already arrived before the Tesseract, hands outstretched, grabbing at it. It seems you have forgotten I was here. A cold voice echoed behind Zane, making the hairs on his body stand. Without even looking behind to find out who it was, he had already dodged and attacked with his V-blade. Clang. 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 The owner of the voice was Korag, and during that short moment, Zane had already exchanged several moves with him, making sparks fly out at each collision. Boom. Finally, both of them were thrown back by the force of the continuous attacks, stopping to steady their bodies midair. He's gotten stronger. Zane's eyes narrowed as he noticed Korag's aura approaching B+ tier. Even his Morpher's appraisal function confirmed it. Strength, B tier approaching B+. Even his dark magic density has increased. It must be the master assisting him. Zane analyzed thoughtfully, then continued. It seems I have to take it up a notch. Even if he gets to the B+ tier level, I have many ways to deal with him. Go. The two sabers appeared in his hands once more, but this time not to attack but to defend. Clang. A metal sound rang out as Zane blocked both Korag's and Mesogog's attacks. That's right, Mesogog had also joined the fray, frantically attacking Zane to get back the Tesseract. These actions seemed slow but happened in a flash. Gravity was still acting on the Tesseract as it cut through the air, rushing downward. So, three of them only exchanged one move before chasing the Tesseract. Of course, Korag and Zane were faster. Whoosh. Zane, wanting to end everything as fast as possible, increased his speed and caught up to the Tesseract. The moment his hands grabbed it, he immediately stored it in the inventory of the Omni-grid. What? Where is it? Korag stopped chasing, seeing the Tesseract disappear. Ranger, where is the Infinity Stone? What Infinity Stone? Zane played dumb, offering a clueless shrug. Even Mesogog, who had just caught up, was extremely surprised by its absence. He scanned the area with his mental energy and found nothing. Mesogog stared deeply at Zane, even more apprehensive than before. What did you do with the Tesseract? Zane said nothing, too lazy to speak further to any of them. Without wasting any more time, he used one of his skills. Apocalypse Descent, full power. His Phase 2 suit shone brightly, and a shark phantom was conjured above him, roaring to the sky. Roar. Its appearance and the power radiated from the body greatly startled the two villains. They didn't even have time to react before it pounced on them with great destructive power. Youthme Hor Cat Astros. Flustered by its gaping maw, Korag instantly cast his Zord spell, summoning his other half. Even Mesogog channeled his mental energy to the max, even injecting himself with a special mutagen fluid. But they were still a step too late. Bang. Boom. Shatter. The large shark phantom tore at the two, shattering Korag's Megazord state and chomping Mesogog's now huge three-headed body into several pieces. But that was not the end of it. After the initial attack, the shark phantom turned into a ball of light, radiating intense energy, enough to destroy several countries. Boom. Am I dead? Mesogog thought to himself before he was completely turned to dust. Korag also had a flash of clarity before death. Where am I? Due to the previous attack, Korag and Mesogog couldn't even muster any more strength to defend. The moment it detonated, they were both pulverized by the intense heat, with only lingering ash remaining. Both their goals and missions followed as well. The people below saw a bright light like the sun detonating above them. Most of them were curious about the outcome of the battle. But they could only wait till the light receded. Luckily, Zane had used his innocent skill on them. So, the energy won't affect them or whatever is below. But that was not the same for the lingering Hidiaks, Chitauri, and Kelzaks. All of them were destroyed, leaving none remaining. Even some, in other parts of the planet, couldn't take the heat and died with no body remaining. This was not something any attack could accomplish, but since this particular skill grows stronger as Zane grows, its power was destined to be terrifying. Seeing his beautiful masterpiece, Zane couldn't help but spread his hands in a flamboyant posture. Explosion is art. He grinned, silently happy about the successful mission. Then again, it was a guaranteed win, he had just been paranoid. After all, who wouldn't be? He had only become a ranger for a few months. Now, I just have to deal with the spaceships above, then the mission will finally be complete. Zane stared deeply at the huge space crack in the sky. Using the space megazord should quickly finish the job. With that decision made, he rushed into the space crack. I'll be posting 2 chapters today. The comic version of Avengers is extremely hard to understand due to numerous universes and plots. It was hard to pick a suitable one. I could only pick bits of it to form a plot. After the conclusion of Arc 1, the next one would begin. Sorry for the hiatus, guys, I'm back now. Chapter 154, End. How is this possible? This can't be happening. No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. The bald commander leading Thanos' forces was horror-struck, unable to comprehend what was before him. It wasn't the failure of the mission that scared him this much, but the titanic construct outside his mothership destroying every fleet with swings of its blade. Even worse, it was approaching him at an accelerated speed. I have to leave. I must leave. I can't die yet. I must. He clumsily steadied his feet, rushing to the ejection portal, hoping to gain a chance of survival, no matter how little it was. As for the remaining forces and the other commander of Lothier's fleet, he didn't care. All he cared about at this moment was himself. Even if it means being exiled to the planet Sakaar. As long as there is a way to live, I'm content. The place of the ejection portal was not far from him, but at this moment, with each step he took, it felt like hours to him. Death was getting close to him as he was also getting close to escaping. He could only hope luck would favor him now. Seconds later, he was finally 3 steps away from the ejection button. A triumphant smile appeared on his hideous face, his heart gleaming with immense joy. I escaped. Ha ha ha, nothing. Boom. Before his fingers touched the button, a large arm blasted open the mothership, sweeping through everything within in a single attack. The irony was the fact that it landed exactly at the ejection button, crushing both him and his hope in a heartbeat. The large arm didn't even stay and left as fast. As if proclaiming all it did was crush an ant. If only I had pushed the button, maybe it would have been different. This was the bald commander's last thought as his body turned to ash with the rest of the fleet. Zane, now, you'd still be dead. The large arm that crushed both fleets was obviously Zane's space megazord. A while ago, when Zane entered the space crack and reached the other side, he immediately deployed it, making a swift, clean sweep. The megazord was his strongest belonging in terms of combat power, so the invaders' fleet was easily crushed in seconds. It was so fast, they could hardly retaliate or even defend. Zane himself was sitting down in the Megazord's cockpit, utterly relaxed. It was as if the destruction moments ago had nothing to do with him, and he was just here to watch. In your next life, be a better person. He naturally witnessed the commander's attempt to escape. While courageous, Zane felt nothing but rage burn in his heart. He could imagine how many planets these forces had invaded and how the victims also fled for their lives, trying to escape a calamity they never caused or expected. The miserable death of the commander even pleased him to a certain extent. Seeing the shock and horror on their faces made him satisfied. What made him even happier was the amount of grid points he had amassed. But he couldn't be bothered with it now. That would be sorted out at headquarters. Then, a thought flashed through his mind. Easier than I expected, he murmured. I thought Thanos would have prepared a hidden card to make sure the mission succeeds. Zane was right, Thanos did prepare a hidden card. It was just that the so-called hidden card, which was the large army and the advanced technology of the mothership, had been utterly decimated by a teenager with a lot of power. Even he would not have expected it to fail so miserably. His proud force that shook the hearts of many throughout the galaxy was nothing but ants to be squashed by Zane. Yawn. He removed his helmet and yawned, feeling mentally exhausted. What a day it has been. I hope situations like this don't happen too often. He continued, controlling the space megazord towards the space crack. After I fix this hole, the mission should finally be completed. Then, I shall sleep. Sleep like no tomorrow. With drooped eyelids, he passed through the crack and tossed a metal plate before leaving. The metal plate was the DRD, Dimensional Repair Device. It buzzed for a split second and then started expanding. From a tiny metal plate, it stretched in a blink of an eye to a size that seemed to bloat the stars in space, covering the entire space crack. Then it shot out beams, repairing and sealing the space crack with extreme efficiency. This took only 10 seconds, indicating how advanced the device is. Many forces in the galaxy have never even chanced upon something so advanced as the DRD. But Zane created it from scratch, in the base with little Alpha's help, showing how monstrously genius he is. The repair only took a few seconds. It then reinforced that section of space and added another 1,000,000 kilometers around it, helping prevent invasion problems. Now, with its reinforcement, unless the artifact used was above S tier, it was practically impossible to invade Earth through space anymore. Hum. The DRD shrank back to its original size, then disappeared as if it never existed. Ancient power. Mystic spell seal. The Titan Megazord appeared in a dark space and moved its sword, forming a spherical spell seal of ancient titans. Then it swung fiercely at the ranger's command, conjuring the power of the seal in a single sword beam that struck a giant monster, sending it flying several meters away. Checkmate. The rangers snapped their fingers in unison. Roar. Boom. Unable to take the force contained within that strike, the monster could only try to beg for mercy hoarsely and exploded before it could even form the words. Yes, we finally won. Chip clenched his fists in victory. The others also followed with words of their own, though most were already exhausted and didn't have extra mental energy like the bubbly yellow ranger. Especially Nick, who, although he was silent, had a silent smile on his face. Looking at the destroyed monster that had troubled them for over an hour, he couldn't help but recall what Udana had told them before they left to defend the mystic realm and its inhabitants. Believe in magic, and all shall be possible. Those simple words once seemed like a cryptic message none of them could figure out. Due to their shallow understanding of her words, they failed to form a Megazord at first and were completely overwhelmed by the gigantic monster. But when they followed the word believe in a literal sense, it was like a door had been unlocked in their minds. The complete spell appeared amidst their faith in magic, and the combination code for a Megazord became extremely easy, like an extension of their own wheel. Even working together through the chess formation control was done with ease. The monster they fought couldn't understand what had changed and was destroyed in minutes, leaving no body to spare. Guys, now that we are done here, shouldn't we go to Midgard, Earth, next? Vita couldn't help but voice out the thoughts in her mind. The other rangers had their eyes dim a little, as they remembered they weren't done with today's mission. Earthrealm still needed their help. Even with their tired bodies, protecting the people of Earth came first. They could always rest later. But before they could move, a voice transmission in their minds stopped them. You don't need to worry about Earth. Someone has already handled it. It was Udana's voice. Huh, really? Madison's eyes widened in surprise. Udana continued. It was also a ranger, a very strong one at that. Well, don't worry about that for now, meet me at Root Core. After leaving that message, she cut off the transmission, leaving the Mystic Force Rangers in a daze for a moment. How's that possible? The number of dark forces that arrived on Earth was almost double that of those here. And with the addition of extraterrestrials, how could it be resolved that fast? This time it was the social butterfly Xander who voiced his doubt. What he heard from Udana sounded like fantasy to him. In his mind, possessing that amount of combat power was almost impossible for any known ranger. Who could it be? Nick murmured loud enough for the others to hear him. Then, like a spark of inspiration, Chip replied. It wouldn't be that Omni-ranger that assisted us the other day, right? As those words fell, the cockpit went silent. It wasn't that they disagreed with Chip, in fact, they accepted his reasoning. What caused the silent atmosphere was none other than each of them envisioning the strength Zane had displayed the other day. They personally witnessed his terrifying strength, so they all felt there was a high possibility the ranger identity was the Omni-ranger, who had assisted them the other day. But for now, they weren't sure yet, as it would be confirmed after arriving at the Root Core. Yes. We won. Cheers and jubilation spread throughout the entire world. Whether it was New York, Angel Grove, or any other place on the planet, songs of victory were sung. Moments ago, Zane arrived and confirmed the threats had been completely dealt with. The people of Earth were both joyful and grateful. They thanked the heroes fervently, including vigilantes they had once detested. Most of the gratitude was towards Zane, as he was the foremost participant of this resistance. It wasn't just the fact that Zane had overwhelmed the enemies, but the way he did it. If it were previous invasions, lives and assets would have been lost. It was no exaggeration that some countries would have been completely wiped out if not for Zane's innocent skill. Though it was only B tier, the range still covered the entire planet, which drained a large amount of Omni-energy from Zane. To refill the used Omni-energy, he had to spend points to buy recovery items from the shop on the Omni-grid. The civilians don't know this, but they could imagine the weight of responsibility he bore at that moment. What they witnessed was nothing short of legendary. A one-man army. An overwhelmingly strong ranger. On normal days, most people would be doubtful, worrying whether such a strong individual should be allowed to roam freely. History and experience had taught them that although heroes helped them, they did more damage to society than they actually saved it. Even several reports and news outlets have debated such matters. But to them, Zane, this Omni-ranger was a new perspective for them. A type of strength that didn't cause damage to those around him. A type of hero they all wanted and needed at the same time. Though not all of them accepted the Omni-ranger, 99% of the world's population did at this moment. As for whether their views of him would change later on, they would leave that to their future selves. Good, exactly the reactions I wanted. Zane, hovering above everyone, sighed deeply in relief. As an avid comic reader in his past life, he knew how citizens behaved towards heroes. In the Power Rangers universe, the people loved them, at least most of them, but Marvel was much worse. During the Avengers' debut as defenders of Earth, they destroyed numerous assets and took dozens of lives due to careless use of power. Although some were grateful to them for saving their lives and protecting Earth, the people whose homes and lives they destroyed hated them to the bone. This was the complexity of the human mind. No matter how beneficial something was to other people or even the entire ecosystem of Earth, if it made them uncomfortable or feel unsafe, their minds would immediately deem it bad or negative. This was both a psychological and biological instinct. But now that Zane had given them what they wanted in the best way possible, the inhabitants of planet Earth were naturally happy. Time to get back to headquarters. Zane looked at the numerous heroes below, then added. The rest should be able to take care of themselves. Omniforce, assemble at base in 5, Zane informed his team through the mental comms, and opened a portal afterward. Whoosh! With a flash of light, Zane disappeared into the rainbow portal. Chapter 155, Forgotten. Tell me, brother, what new deception will you weave now? I do not wish to end you with my own very hands. Thor, holding firmly onto his Mjolnir, stared deeply at the figure sprawled on the ground. Loki, with severe injuries and upturned insides, laughed maniacally at his brother's question. He, oh brother, you're still as soft-hearted as ever. Truly unfit for the throne. If Mesogog were still alive and saw that Loki was also present and participating in the battle, he'd be too stunned to speak. Wasn't he also present at his lab? But what he didn't know till his death was that Loki was the god of mischief and no mere mortal could hold him. Even Asgard couldn't keep him in check, who was Mesogog to accomplish that? The blatant disdain in Loki's words made Thor frown and sigh in helplessness. He noticed that within those eyes filled with pain was a hidden anger directed towards him and the entire realm of Asgard. If it were before, he might not have noticed it, but after staying and living in Midgard for some time as an ordinary mortal, his mentality had transformed. Therefore, Loki's inferiority complex was very clear to him. At first, he had no idea why Loki felt that way, but after consulting the Allfather, the matter became clear to him. It was simply because Loki felt like an outsider. Loki wasn't a seed of Odin but an adopted Bifrost, unfit for the throne of Asgard and not favored. Whereas Thor, who is a direct descendant of one of the most powerful gods in the 9 realms, was favored and crowned the next king of Asgard. Moreover, Loki looked down on him when it came to matters of leadership and fiefdom. And it wasn't his fault. Thor knew how reckless he had been before being crowned as the god of thunder and an heir to the throne of an empire that had existed for eons. If not for Odin's test, the current him would have never been born. He understood Loki's pain, but also understood his brother's extremity. So, no matter what, he had to take him back to Asgard for judgment. Thor looked at Loki with unconcealed worry and spoke, "Why must you be so stubborn, brat? All right, enough of this. I have an upcoming schedule with my bed. So, you guys might need to wrap it up." Tony interrupted. His face was filled with impatience as he stared at the brotherly duo. He was truly exhausted and needed to rest. His body was that of a mortal, not like the rest of the team. Moreover, he was very hungry, and also weirdly craving some shawarma. Loki, still grimacing on the tiled floor of the Stark Tower, cast a smug glance at Tony. How dare a mere mortal interrupt this go? Hulk, standing at the center of the room, grumbled slightly, startling Loki and forcing his remaining words back. As for why Hulk was present and working with the Avengers, it was because Doggy Kruger requested him to do so. As for why he gave that command, Banner couldn't be bothered to care, as long as it did him no harm or discomfort, helping them was fine. I think Mr. Stark is right, Thor. The hostile alien forces have been dealt with, our mission is now complete, and ending it is only right. We don't need more complications to arise, as it did previously, and we all know the cause of that is your dear brother over here. So, please take him away as soon as possible. Natasha also spoke, her voice lower than usual. She was also exhausted and wanted nothing more than to end it all. Thor stared deeply at the Midgardian he had once disdained and now worked with. He shook his head with a slight smile and replied. You're right. We've wasted enough time here. I'll be taking my brother home for judgment now. Captain America nodded. I hope it all goes well, and please make sure he doesn't find a way back to Earth again. Thor heard this and shook his head. No need to worry, Captain. With Asgard's defense, he won't be able to escape from his cells, not to mention causing chaos here again. You said the same thing the last time, Hawkeye grumbled inwardly but didn't bother to voice his thoughts. Out of all of them, he was the most stressed. A lot of things had happened to him today, he'd rather go home and cool off. Great, Captain America gave a short response, turned to his team, then continued. Avengers. Fallout. Whoosh. A multicolored vortex the size of a small car appeared in the Omni base. Zane, already powered down to his Phase 1 suit, flew out from this very vortex. He hovered in the air for a few seconds, taking in the atmosphere around the base. After confirming his successful arrival, with a silent sigh, Zane flew straight to the headquarters with a speed not too fast or too slow. "Master Zane, welcome." The moment Zane appeared in the control room, Alpha rolled over to greet him. Zane acknowledged it with a pat on her head. "Hey, Alpha. Thanks for managing the base in my absence." "It's my duty, Master," Alpha responded and got back to work, leaving only Zane with his thoughts. What a day it has been. A cold energy drink appeared in his hands as he sat down. Thankfully, it all went well. Slurp. As Zane drank the special drink, his physical exhaustion vanished completely, and his mental energy also recovered by half. Even though he was very strong now, his body and mind were still human. The amount of Omni energy he could use and contain was limited. Although the amount of Omni energy available to him was perpetually infinite, the weight of his skills still consumed a significant amount of his stamina and energy. I hope breaking through a higher level would reduce this cost. Zane sighed thoughtfully in his heart. But he wasn't discouraged. After all, he had only been a Power Ranger for no more than 2 months and had already gotten this strong. He couldn't be too greedy. Suddenly. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. A multicolored portal appeared outside the headquarters again, but this time larger than the previous one. They're back, Zane's lips curled up in a smile. Following his thoughts, the rest of the team finally walked out of the portal. Their posture was firm, but Zane still noticed the exhaustion hidden in their body language. He didn't rush forward to meet them, as that would be contradicting his leader persona. Instead, he closed his eyelids, crossed his legs, and patiently waited for them to arrive. A minute later, the room's door slid open, and the team walked in. "Welcome," Zane, already powered down to his civilian form, spoke first, looking at each of his team members with unconcealed satisfaction. Though being invincible is great, having strong, reliable supporters behind your goal is better. Even while he had been battling titans and villains, he still noticed the team's excellent display of power and interdependence. Though he had expected a similar situation with their newly increased strength, the performance still exceeded his expectations. Moreover, because of them, he was bound to get even more rewards from the Omni grid. The team hummed in response, too tired to even form a complete sentence. This didn't annoy Zane, since he was also in a similar situation, having just recovered his energy. Without further delay, he willed several energy drinks to appear before the exhausted team members. The instant they saw the familiar can, their eyes lit up. Their body reacted faster than they could think, grabbing each can and chugging it down their throat. Gulp gulp gulp. For a while, only sounds of swallowing could be heard in the entire room. Only Zane was quiet, watching them silently as their energy recovered. Then, Kira moved first, walked towards Zane, and sat on his lap as if she owned it, without even asking for permission. Huh. Zane was startled at first, but remembering she was his beloved, he smiled and just let her lay her head on his shoulders. Minutes later, after the cans were emptied, sounds of snoring echoed throughout the room. Every single team member except Tommy had already fallen asleep. Even Kira, who sat on Zane's lap, was already snoring softly on his shoulders. The turn of events stunned Zane, but as he thought of their difference in strength, the situation was reasonable. Most of them had only advanced to early C tier, and the battle they had fought was extremely long. Sleeping was the best way for them to rest mentally. It even made the energy drink work faster, nourishing and strengthening their bodies. He could only sigh and wait with patience. His hands also unconsciously massaged Kira's blonder hair as she slept, making her look extremely cute. Tommy, who was before him, also went deep into meditation, recovering his mental energy with the help of the energy drink. With that, the entire room fell into silence once more. On the other side of the mystic realm, a dark forest could be seen. It spanned several kilometers, easily exceeding the entire planet of Earth. Although huge, it was almost lifeless, with only black and dead trees present on all sides. And at the center of this huge realm was a massive pitch-black hole, kilometers wide. If one stared deep into this pit, they would see nothing but darkness. Not a single ray of light would be seen in it. It was like an abyss that swallows all things, turning them into indiscernible darkness. Surprisingly deep within this large hole was a whole kingdom. The people of this kingdom called this place the Pit and worshipped a ruler named the Master. At the very core of this abyssal hole, a huge pond emanating an eerie energy suddenly stirred, causing all things to freeze. Yes, space and time completely froze at this moment. He failed yet again, a voice spoke in an unknown language, filled with eeriness that seemed to affect the surrounding void. My plan was certain to be successful, and after multiple divinations, there should have been no error. Who could have caused this? The mysterious voice was the Master's. But it also felt like multiple people were talking at the same time. Plus, although the voice was faint and unheard by anyone, it still caused the surrounding space around him to break bit by bit. It was almost as if he was deep in slumber and not fully awakened at all. Yet, his mere words could still cause the stagnation of space-time. "I shall revive you both," the master continued, staring at the two souls in his grasp. "Fail me one more time, and I shall devour you both, leaving not even your soul." The two souls trembled at his words. They could only shake, unable to resist the pressure from the master. Suddenly, the place the master resided in trembled, and a blood-red eye appeared. Several tentacles followed after, coiling around the two souls and releasing a type of unknown energy. Shortly after, the souls fell into slumber, and a cocoon appeared around them. The tentacles retreated afterwards, leaving only the blood-red eye present. Time and space also continued. But what the master didn't notice was the fact that some of his memories were already missing. He had completely forgotten the culprit of his failed plan. The memory of the one who killed the two souls was already long gone. Another chapter done. The next chapter will be the end of the arc, guys. Please donate Power Stones. Chapter 156, Rewards and End. Hours had passed since the invasion had been quelled. The team had also departed to their respective homes. Only Zane remained in the base, staring expectantly at the light screen that only he could see. Omni-ranger System. Name, Zane Callahan. Designation, Omni-ranger, B, rank. Age. Level, 20, now 20 due to small missions taken. Next upgrades will be displayed. XP, 5000/5000, condition for advancement unlocked. Title, Grids chosen, Transmigrant. Overall strength, B tier, middle. This approximates all his stats from strength to energy output, excluding items that boost power. Skills. Primary Omni-ranger skills, Omni-reflex, Omni-burst, Omni-blast, Omni-beam, Elemental orb, new. Click here for more skills and information. Secondary skills. Innocence, skill type, B tier, growth, Megazord skill, A tier, Omni-resonance drive, A tier, Grid sovereign manifestation, A tier. System functions. Inventory, Tesseract, 10 training cards, Heart Herb X2, blueprint acquired, Omnicide MK.2, custom weapon, upgradable, Dragon Shield, legendary, Power Rangers series, URU Metal, Starfall Lance SPD Delta Enforcer, Astro Morpher upgrade chip, Beast X Saber, Turbo Accelerator boots, V-Blade, Quantum Defender etc. Missions, Invasion Defense, completed. Personal Arsenal, Omni-Saber, Omni-Blasters, Omni-Cycle, Revival Altar, Prehistoric Totem. Ranger Forms, Omni-Ranger Series, 2 forms unlocked, Jungle Fury Series. Megazord Bay, Shark Zord, White Tiger Zord. Morph Lab, Suit/Weapon Customization. Multiversal Navigation and Travel, locked. Shop, Ranger plus Marvel items. Grid points, 300,450,670. Looking at the terrifying number of grid points he now possessed, Zane's lips curled into a wide grin, almost unable to contain the laughter threatening to burst out. From the time he had begun this ranger journey, he had never seen this many zeros before. The number of points he previously owned, while seemingly much, was actually not enough to spend lavishly on the shop of the Omni-Grid. The feeling of seeing something that might be useful for you in the shop and being unable to purchase it had been tormenting Zane. In his past life, there was almost nothing he couldn't purchase. He was one of the richest and most accomplished figures. So, poverty was unacceptable to him, whether it was real-world money or grid points, he had to be rich on both sides. Zane forcefully calmed his tense nerves and focused on the mission section. This was the most important segment of the day. The rewards might not be in GP, but they will always contain something of a higher value. That is, if only the mission's rating is high. I hope the reward is something worthwhile. Hopefully it's something that can enhance me and the team's strength to the next level. Zane prayed deeply in his heart and mentally clicked on the mission section, revealing the contents. Mission, Invasion Defense, completed. Calculating performance. Compiling results. Mission rating, SSS grade. Holy shit, it's actually a rating above S. Zane stood up in shock. He stared wide-eyed at the golden rating on the panel. And it's actually the second highest grade. This was somewhat beyond his expectations. He had expected an assured S grade or an SS rank at best, but never an SSS grade. According to the grid, this grade could produce rewards beyond his current comprehension. The Omni-Grid had instilled the knowledge of the ranks when he first transmigrated here. Therefore, the terror of an SSS grade was very clear to him. Whether living or non-living, things possessing this grade could alter the very reality of the entire universe, and on a large scale at that. So, Zane being overwhelmed was normal. After all, he had only recently gotten in contact with the extraordinary and attained these powers. His military mental resilience was not enough to lessen the shock at this moment. An SSS grade is truly unexpected, Zane murmured as he sat back down. But the grid should explain why with the assessment data. As soon as those words fell, numerous amounts of data surged into his mind, carefully breaking down the when, what, and whys that birthed such a high rank. Due to the vast amount of information, a groan subconsciously left his mouth, and his eyes were tightly shut. This information included all the actions he, his team, and the other heroes took. The number of enemies killed and the vast number of lives saved. It even recorded all the combat info every single person on the battlefield took, including his. What was even more astonishing was the fact that all the weaknesses and mistakes everyone present made became clear to him. Due to this forceful installation, Zane's fighting experience surged, and the weaknesses of both allies and foes were clear to him. The information even proposed several points for his personal improvement. All this took about an hour and a half to fully digest as it was extremely vast. Zane took a deep breath as his eyes opened and regained their focus. He said nothing for a moment, but instead stood up and threw a straight punch. Boom, boom, boom. That single punch echoed a full 9 times, producing shockwaves that threatened to destroy everything. Is this the benefit of an SSS grade? He looked at his hands, bewildered. I haven't even officially opened the rewards yet, and my strength has improved by this much. This is crazy. He couldn't find the right words to evaluate what had just happened. A simple assessment had actually increased his personal strength and control by a whole 50%. He even felt like it would only take a minute or so to defeat his former self. I've been truly arrogant. I had thought my strength was already impressive at B tier, but now it seems I wasn't even at my full potential. Zane sighed as he analyzed the mistakes he made during his battle. The assessment had informed him he had used more power than needed to fend off the invaders. Even worse, his control was subpar, barely at the rank of a true master. What he just did was excessively use Omni-energy to fight and forcefully raise his combat power. His personal strength wasn't even used properly. The only reason he got an SSS grade was that he prioritized safety before actual fighting and killed all the enemies during the mission. If the assessment truly looked at combat, his rank would have been lower. It seems I can't get complacent and underestimate my enemies. If there had been a true master amongst them, I wouldn't even know how I died. Zane immediately adjusted his mindset, suppressing his pride and increasing his caution. From now on, when battling, he would not hold anything back. Until he became truly invincible, he would never look down on an enemy. If Zane knew the threats that the Omni grade had protected him from, his caution might have turned to paranoia. But thankfully, he had no idea what threats he had evaded and could continue his growth in a safe space until he could solve them himself. Rewards pending. The panel floated silently before Zane, reminding him he was not done yet. He snapped out of his thoughts and focused on the next segment. This time, because the assessment didn't come as a report on the panel but memory input, there was no section available for it. Only the reward column remained. Open, Zane commanded. Whoosh. A dazzling light erupted, forcing Zane to squint his eyes. It was so bright, the light illuminated every corner of the base. It only appeared for a moment, before disappearing the next second. That was intense. Zane massaged his stinging eye before focusing back on the panel. Then, its contents were revealed. Congratulations, Master, you have obtained the heart of the universe. Congratulations, Master, you have obtained complete control over the Morphin grid. Congratulations, Master, you have obtained all Ranger transformations. Congratulations, Master, you have obtained the Supreme Symbiote. Congratulations, Master, you have obtained a Batlizer form. Congratulations, Master. The multiversal navigation and travel function has been unlocked. Congratulations, Master. You have obtained 10 gradeless multiverse recruitment orders. Congratulations, Master. You have obtained 10 advanced training and upgrade cards. Note, work hard, Master, the multiverse is only your starting point. Zane. The author. The readers. What the fuck? Zane couldn't hold it in anymore and screamed at the top of his lungs. His voice echoed throughout the ambient base, scaring some of the animals grazing on rare grasses into running. His eyes were wide open, staring unbelievably at the list of rewards before him. As an avid fan of comics, how could he not understand the gravity of what lay before him? They were practically supreme treasures of both universes. Unseen and unknown by many. And now the Omni grid just casually rewarded them. He almost couldn't believe it. Heart of the universe, control over the Morphin grid and, this is crazy. Zane's mind was in chaos, but he still forced himself into composure. He sat down quietly for a few minutes, breathing in and out. It took him almost 10 minutes to organize his thoughts. I can't believe a reward could mess with my mind so much, Zane murmured, feeling a lingering fear in his heart. It seems training my mind to be stronger should be put on the agenda. The moment he received the rewards, a surge of pride had surged in his mind, almost making him lose all morality. But thankfully, his mental energy was enough to resist those temptations. This reaction was normal. Power tends to change people, no matter how humble they had once been. Not everyone was like Peter Parker. Even Zane was still human, possessing all good and bad emotions. Not to mention the gravity of the rewards he had just received was enough to make anyone go mad with greed. If it weren't for his innately good heart and determination, he would have most likely fallen. Sigh, I have to be careful next time, Zane murmured with a slight look of horror, then added. Forget it, forget it. I'll claim the rewards first. Heart of the universe, a supreme energy source that transforms its user into the very fabric of existence, allowing them to absorb and recreate multiple multiverses. Note, can only be used when Master is at S tier. As of now, it can only manipulate reality on a small scale. Control over the Morphin grid, Master now has full control over the Morphin grid. Master is supreme within. Master can also bestow, remove, and upgrade a ranger's position on the grid. There are lots of mysteries in this fragment of the Omni grid, Master must study them carefully. All ranger transformations, Master now possesses all past, present, and future ranger transformations, including but not limited to weapons, skills, zords, etc. Note, the ranger forms would always be at the same level as the Master's current strength. The Supreme Symbiote, a life form specifically created by the Omni grid. It is bound to the Master and can consume anything, extract several powers, and evolve with no limit. All its powers are also fed back to the Master. Battlizer form, this is a special Battlizer form for the Master's Omni-ranger suit. It boosts the Master's power by 2 tiers and has no upper limit to growth. Multiversal and travel function, this newly unlocked function allows the Master to navigate and travel to any multiverse with no limit. Whether it be a known cartoon, superhero, game, anime, manhwa, donghua novel, or comic world, the Master can travel at no cost. Master can also bring people into or out of these worlds. Gradeless multiversal recruitment orders, Master can use this order to recruit anyone in any reality. But it depends on the Master's current tier and luck. Meaning the Master can recruit a being starting from B tier and upwards. Note, recruits cannot betray, no matter what means is used to defy the Master. Advanced training and upgrade cards, the training cards can increase the user's strength by a time frame of 10 years in a second. While the upgrade cards can increase the strength of a user by 2 minor ranks within a tier. Zane took a deep breath as he finally finished going through everything. The rewards were exactly what he had thought they would be. Although Zane had controlled his mind previously, he still felt waves of shock in his mind. With these rewards, going against Drakkon in the future should be easy, right? He thought with delight. In fact, what weighed most in his heart was the main mission of facing off against Drakkon in the near future. After all, that was his main reason for even arriving in this new reality. With the explanation he had gotten from the Omni-grid, Drakkon was getting stronger at every passing moment, and for him to meet up, he needed leverage. These rewards were a perfect example of that leverage. The future is bright, Zane hummed a happy tune, temporarily putting the rewards in his inventory. They weren't suitable for use now. He needed extensive planning. It was only then they could be utilized at max efficiency. After his initial excitement, Zane slowly stood and walked towards the window, which revealed the lush forest not far from the headquarters. With his hands behind his back, Zane took a deep breath, and a smile once again appeared on his handsome, sunny face. It seems this new life isn't bad after all. His mind at this moment was utterly calm. This state of focus brought out recent memories, which he then carefully reviewed. From the time of his transmigration to this present moment, life had been nothing short of surprising. He enjoyed his new world, whether it was the friends he made, the powers he obtained, or the growth he had as a person, everything had been a source of joy for him. As an orphan in both worlds, only he knew the severe loneliness that afflicted him each day of his life. He ate alone, worked alone, celebrated success alone, enjoyed alone. It had been truly lonely. But now, I don't have to live like that anymore, Zane thought of his team, most especially his new lover Kira. I finally have a family of my own. Then, his gaze became determined. To protect my new life, I have to get stronger, stronger than any threat. I mustn't lose anyone close to me. Never again. Thinking of his dead father, Zane's hand subconsciously clenched into a fist. Remembering how he watched his father's life slip away slowly, sadness welled up in his heart. He never wants to experience something like that ever again. So, this new life no one shall take it away from him. Absolutely no one. In the end, it all comes down to strength. To build an impenetrable fortress, one has to have a solid foundation. The Omni-grid is my foundation, much stronger than any foundation. It is also my key to supreme power. Whether it's Drakkon or another supreme evil, none of you shall threaten this new life I've been gifted. I shall be your nightmare. Whoever threatens this world or my world, death shall be their final destination. Destruction shall be their end. I, the Omni-ranger, shall be their reaper. With a low shout, an invisible pressure surged out from him. His will completely transformed at this moment, reaching a level most would never touch in their lifetime. As for how strong it had become, even he had no idea. He couldn't be bothered to check it now. But what was assured was that a new player had entered the multiversal game. And his might shall overturn all rules. The title Omni-ranger shall be both a beacon of hope for the good and a source of fear for evil. End of the first arc, guys. Thanks for all the support, guys, even with my inconsistency. I will try to update more frequently and find time between my studies. I also enjoy writing, as it is a source of mental rest for me. Although I'm a new writer, I'm happy that my writing and plotting skills have increased. It is also due to all my readers. Thanks so much, guys. Guys, please donate Power Stones. It is also a form of motivation for me to continue writing.